If asked which is your favourite Elder Scrolls game, Skyrim is the easy answer. It's polished, looks better, and is more finely balanced than the earlier games. It has a large and current fanbase, whereas those who prefer Morrowind or Oblivion tend to look like bitter, nostalgic losers who hate it just because it changes things.
And I've got better things to do than listen to more of your fantasies.
Are you feeling sick?
But it is my favourite, and I don't want to discuss its obvious strengths. Those are trumpeted enough already. I want to say why it's special to me, and even after hundreds of hours in the earlier games, this one still stands out as being the best. Before its release, I didn't care much for Skyrim. I excitedly watched the first trailer minutes after its release, only to leave it somewhat disappointed. Okay, it looked better and had an interesting setting, but it was still limited to current gen technology and would no doubt be hindered by it. We wouldn't have hundreds of characters on screen at once. The poly count and texture detail would suffer, and let's face it, the Elder Scrolls games have never been about good gameplay. Honestly, they haven't. If I wanted good sword fights, I'd choose Dark Messiah. If I wanted graphics, Crysis. For magic, Magicka. If I wanted an RPG, actually I'd probably still go for Final Fantasy IX. However, the Elder Scrolls has always been about the bigger picture, about the freedom. What amazes me is how no other game offers the sheer sandbox scale that the Elder Scrolls can. I'd happily overlook its many imperfections just because it's more ambitious than any other game out there. It's effectively a continent on a disc. I was astounded when Oblivion came on a single DVD, and even more so with Skyrim, a single disc, limited by current gen technology. Even when I finally got around to playing the game, it wasn't love at first sight. I was disappointed by how dull and scripted the intro was. Bethesda have always managed to disappoint me with their intros. Minutes later I questioned why I'd bother exploring a world that looked to me as a god. But slowly, it grew on me. I watched the villagers amble about, carrying out everyday activities. I harvested some bushes, spoke to some guards, and the opportunities for mischief began to formulate in my mind. And that's when I saw it. The mountain. I wanted to climb it, and just like in real life, the closer I got to it, the larger and more impressive it became. As I rushed past mountain goats and towards the snowy upper regions, I questioned how a game could even simulate it so well. And then I got smashed in by a troll. I wasn't a god, and this one annoying creature was restricting a part of the world for me. I'd show him. I rushed into a nearby cave, only to get destroyed by a vampire. All of a sudden, the world was growing around me. I knew my place and I knew my foes. I understood that one day things would be different, and hoped that the whole world would be full of as many little touches as my first hour had been. It was. I recall several hours later in the main city, looking at the quests I had to do. They were piling up in my inventory faster than I could complete them. For every one I finished, several more would take their place. I was overwhelmed and almost wanted it to stop. This continued, not just for the next few hours, but for days and days. I remember I went to have tea halfway through Shea Gorath's quest, my head buzzing from the opportunities and experience I had encountered so far. The game left its mark on me. The last 2 months of 2011 will forever conjure up images of the Northern Lights, the sad Nordic chanting, and the beauty of Skyrim. I remember admiring my magic professor as we embarked on a terrifying quest into a tomb, aware that something bad could happen at any second. Despite completing hundreds of quests, I continue to respect each one, and they never cease to amaze me with their twists and turns. Tens of hours after Oblivion was becoming repetitive, Skyrim's world kept giving. The levelling scaled just enough to keep me on my toes, but would let me see my progress by challenging me to fiercer looking creatures. It was kind enough to chuck in the occasional unfortunate low-level bandit to show me how much of a badass my character had become. Earlier games relied on their scale to compensate for subpar gameplay, but Skyrim's could stand on its own 2 feet. I've heard people moan about how it removes elements. Really? Did you enjoy jumping about the world to level up your acrobatics, or continually heal yourself to become a wizard? Skyrim's world is harder to exploit, and I didn't find myself developing irritating tics to take advantage of them. I played as I was meant to. Skyrim is a diverse and beautiful place. You have forests, open plains, bubbling springs, marshes, mountains, snow, and grassy valleys. Each area is memorable and unique, and has helped me chart up a mental map of the world that I could never do in Oblivion and Morrowind. Although the earlier games had variety, it either looked artificial or was too subtle to make any difference. And how about the tombs? These were the places I'd avoid in Morrowind and Oblivion. I'd dread entering them, and would long to leave once inside. Skyrim's are vast and varied, and are ingeniously designed. If you're in a massive tomb and get to the end, there's almost always a quick way out to avoid backtracking. The architecture, creatures and stories that exist in these dark places help to add another side to Skyrim. They don't feel tacked on, but rather serve as another side to the game that's just as well thought out and constructed as the world above it. The main storyline is a massive improvement over previous games. In my opinion, it's still the weak point of the game, and after a while the dragons become a flying joke, but honestly I don't care. I enjoy staging battles between villagers and a dragon, or guards and a giant. Whilst in previous games, the creatures seem limited to a certain size, Skyrim isn't afraid of adding a sense of scale and progression to your abilities. It's a small touch with big consequences. I pity anybody who hasn't tried this game. It's a game that has something for everyone, and even if you only like 5% of what it has to offer, it's still greater than most entire other games. I've been quick to point out flaws to the previous games, but Skyrim isn't so easy to criticise. I feel I've done everything there is to the game, and yet one quick conversation with my sister later reveals things that I've missed, or different paths that I could have taken. I still play as my original character, the fearless and mentally challenged Odgrub the Basher. With him I conquered this harsh land. I remember gradually maxing out his abilities. I treated the last unexplored regions of the world with the same respect as a child with their last unopened present on Christmas Day, knowing there would be a long time before such treats would come around again. The game to him is no longer a challenge, but a playground to muck about on. I scale mountains for the fun of it and fill houses with cheese rolls because I can. Some of the quests remain unfinished because I attempted them before the patches rolled out, and these tease me to this day, begging me to start the game again from scratch to experience them the way they were meant to be played. But I've grown too fond of Odgrub, and it's not an experience I'm going to throw aside easily. No doubt he'll be the one who will boldly venture first into the Elder Scrolls 6 for me. Our friendship may last the rest of my life and extend far beyond the reaches of the world of Tamriel. Authors claim that the characters they create take on personalities of their own, and Odgrub to me is no exception. He isn't just my eyes and ears in these games. It's as though his personality takes over and I begin to play as him. I know it sounds incredibly sad, but I don't care. My experiences with him have been more exciting and memorable than in any of the multiplayer games that I've played. I could happily jump into this game again, were it not for the fear that it would swallow up entire weeks of my life. When Deus Ex Human Revolution came out earlier that year, it was the best game I had ever played. I didn't expect the experience to be trumped so soon afterwards by Skyrim. I'm almost frustrated by it, since Skyrim doesn't need any support and most definitely doesn't need me to make a video trumpeting how amazing it is. I don't need to convince any of you to play this game, since you have most likely already experienced it. Although the tangible parts of this game are great, the true importance of Skyrim are the personal experiences that you alone have encountered thanks to its sandbox nature. I believe that when you're searching for videos such as the one you're currently watching, you don't want to hear about what's so good about the game. You want to hear why it's a good game and how it is worth more to you than the sum of its parts may suggest, and I'm afraid that you'll likely be left disappointed. Nostalgia is a bittersweet and poetic fact of life, and what's truly important about this game to you may not be the same as it is for me. Words can't describe the importance of discovering a certain quest, or of losing your dearest Lydia in an accidental sword blow. I too share your frustration at being able to recall the best bits of this game, but being so unable to convey them into words for others to appreciate. It's one of the most lonely parts of life. But I urge you to keep the screenshots, save games and favourite music tracks from it safe in a folder somewhere, because in 10 years time, when new games have rendered this one obsolete in all areas, you can go back through those memories again and remember just how special Skyrim was to you. You'll argue with fans of the newer games, sharing your reasons for why Skyrim was better. They won't understand. And how can they? Their memories will be with newer games that have built on Skyrim's strengths further. They won't appreciate how without the earlier games, the ones that they're playing now wouldn't be possible. You too can then become a bitter, nostalgic loser who hates newer games just because they change things.